Everyone refused to bond with the blind Apache chief's daughter, until this cowboy accidentally. The sun rose slowly over the vast desert, painting the sky in soft shades of orange and pink. In the heart of this wide and lonely land, a small Apache village rested quietly. It was a place where traditions ran deep and where everyone knew one another. Among the villagers, there was a young girl named Naeli, the daughter of the Apache chief. She was 16, but unlike most children her age, she had never seen the world with her own eyes. Naeli was blind. From the day she was born, Naeli had learned to experience the world differently. She could hear the whispers of the wind through the tall grass, feel the warmth of the sun on her skin, and sense the vibrations of footsteps across the earth. Her father, the chief, taught her to listen carefully to understand life through sound, touch, and intuition. But despite her sharp senses, the villagers treated Naeli with distance and hesitation. Children her age often avoided her. They didn't know how to include her in their games or conversations, and sometimes they said unkind things without realizing the weight of their words. "She can't see anything," they would whisper. "What fun can you have with someone who can't play like us?" Adults, too, were cautious. They admired the chief and respected his family, but they were unsure how to interact with a blind girl who had always needed guidance. It was as if they feared breaking some invisible rule. Naeli, however, did not let their hesitation define her. She spent her mornings learning the traditions of her people. Her father would walk beside her as they practiced tracking the paths of deer or identifying the subtle differences in bird songs. She could recognize almost every sound in the village: the creak of the wooden door, the clatter of pottery, even the soft footfalls of someone approaching from a distance. It was a skill the villagers did not fully understand, but Naeli took pride in it. Despite her talents, loneliness was a constant companion. She longed for friends, for laughter and play, for someone who could see her for who she was, not just as a blind girl. Sometimes she would sit by the edge of the village, running her fingers over the rough bark of a tree, or feeling the warm sand slip through her hands, imagining what it would be like to explore the world freely. She dreamed of adventures beyond the village, of chasing the wind across the hills or wading into the river without fear. But every time she tried to imagine these things, she was reminded of her isolation. Her father noticed her quiet moments. He often placed a gentle hand on her shoulder and said, "Naeli, you have strength within you that others cannot see. One day, someone will come along who understands you. Until then, trust in yourself." His words were kind, but they could not fill the emptiness she felt when no one else came near. The village itself was small but lively. Smoke rose from clay ovens, children ran through the dusty streets, and women gathered near the wells, chatting and laughing. But Naeli remained on the sidelines. Whenever she joined the other children, they didn't know how to include her in their games. They would play tag or hide-and-seek, and Naeli, unable to see, could not participate in the same way. Some tried to guide her, but it often led to frustration. Soon, she learned to watch from a distance, listening to the laughter she could not join. Still, she never gave up hope. Naeli had an imagination that carried her to places the other villagers never thought of. She imagined herself riding across the open plains, feeling the wind whip through her hair, the sound of hooves thundering beneath her. She pictured climbing high cliffs and hearing the birds circle above her. In her mind, she was free. She could explore without limits, and no one could take that away from her. Every afternoon, she would sit with her father near the edge of the village. He would teach her about the world beyond their homes, the plants that grew wild in the desert, the animals that roamed freely, and the stars that sparkled in the night sky. He taught her their names, their habits, and the lessons they offered. She learned how to sense danger, how to find water, and how to navigate by listening to the subtle shifts of the wind. It was a life full of learning, yet still tinged with sadness because she had no one her age to share it with. Naeli's mother had passed away when she was very young, leaving the chief to raise her alone. Her father did everything he could to ensure she felt loved and included. He encouraged her to speak, to ask questions, and to explore within safe boundaries. Yet, even with her father's guidance, she felt a deep longing for connection. She wanted a friend who would laugh with her, someone who would understand her world without needing explanations. The village respected Naeli's intelligence and resilience, but fear and uncertainty kept most people at a distance. They didn't know how to communicate with her fully or how to include her in daily life. Some thought her blindness was a weakness, while others worried they might unintentionally upset her. This left Nayeli in a delicate position, aware of the world and full of curiosity, yet isolated from the very people she longed to know. Despite the loneliness, Nayeli was not bitter. She was gentle and thoughtful, often listening more than speaking, noticing details others missed. She learned to find joy in small moments, the chirping of crickets at dusk, the gentle rustle of leaves, or the warm aroma of bread baking in clay ovens. These small pleasures became her companions, teaching her that even in isolation, the world could offer beauty. One day, as Nayeli walked near the edge of the village, she paused to listen to the desert. The wind carried distant sounds, an eagle calling far above, the clatter of hooves across the plain, and the faint murmur of voices from neighboring settlements. She closed her eyes, letting the vibrations of life guide her, and imagined herself stepping beyond the village, free to roam wherever she wished. In those moments, she felt a spark of hope. Perhaps one day someone would come along who could see her not as a blind girl, but as Nayeli, the courageous and curious young woman she was becoming. Her father watched her from a distance, a quiet pride in his eyes. He knew the world could be harsh, but he also knew his daughter had a spirit that could shine even in darkness. "Nayeli," he whispered softly, "your journey is just beginning. The world will one day meet you, and when it does, it will see your strength." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the village, Nayeli returned to her home, her heart carrying both the ache of loneliness and the quiet hope of a brighter tomorrow. She might have been isolated, but she was far from defeated. The girl who could not see was learning to perceive the world in ways others could not, and she would wait patiently for the moment her world would change forever. And so, the days passed. Nayeli listened, learned, and dreamed, her spirit growing stronger with each sunrise. Though the villagers did not yet understand her, she was preparing herself for the day someone would. She did not know who that person would be, but somewhere on the horizon, someone would arrive. And when they did, Nayeli would be ready. The next morning, the village was bathed in soft sunlight, and the air smelled faintly of wild sage and warm earth. Nayeli was already awake, sitting outside her small home, listening to the wind and the distant sounds of the desert. Birds chirped in the trees, and the faint sound of children playing carried from the center of the village. Yet despite all this life around her, Nayeli felt the same familiar loneliness. She longed for a companion, someone who could see the world the way she imagined it, not just with eyes, but with heart and curiosity. It was around this time that a stranger arrived near the village. His name was Luke, a young cowboy traveling through the region in search of work. His wide-brimmed hat shaded his face from the sun, and his worn boots crunched against the desert soil as he made his way toward the village. Luke was different from the people Nayeli had seen before. He moved with confidence but carried himself gently, as if he respected every living thing around him. When the villagers first spotted him, they whispered among themselves. Visitors were not uncommon, but strangers often brought caution along with them. Luke had heard stories of the Apache village during his travels. He admired the people's strength and the way they lived in harmony with the land. As he approached, he noticed Nayeli sitting near a small patch of wildflowers, her hands lightly brushing over the petals. Though he could not see her eyes, there was a calmness about her, an awareness of the world that seemed unusual to him. Curious, he stopped a few steps away, unsure whether to speak or move closer. Nayeli sensed someone near her. Even though she could not see, she could feel the rhythm of his steps and the slight shift in the air around him. "Who's there?" she asked softly, her voice steady but cautious. Luke smiled, though she could not see it. "Just a traveler," he said gently. "My name is Luke. I mean no harm." Nayeli paused. She was wary of strangers, especially men she had never met. Her life had taught her to be careful, yet there was something in Luke's voice, calm, honest, and curious, that made her relax slightly. "I'm Nayeli," she said. "I live here. What do you want?" Luke laughed softly, a warm, easy sound. "I'm looking for work, learning about the land and meeting people," he said. "I didn't expect to meet anyone so aware." He hesitated, then added, "You seem to notice everything around you." Nayeli tilted her head slightly. "I have to. The world doesn't show itself to me like it does to others. I learn by listening, by touching, by feeling the wind and the earth. That is how I know things." Luke nodded, clearly impressed. "I never thought about it that way," he admitted. "It must give you a different kind of understanding than most people have." For a few minutes, they stood quietly, listening to the wind and the distant sounds of the village. Naomi sensed Luke's curiosity and honesty, and a strange feeling of trust began to grow. She had not shared much with anyone outside her family, yet she felt comfortable speaking with him. As they talked, Luke accidentally stumbled over a small rock near Naomi's feet. He caught himself quickly, but the sudden sound made Naomi jump back instinctively. "Careful," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and caution. Luke laughed nervously. "I didn't mean to scare you," he said. "I'm not very graceful with these rocks." Naomi studied him carefully, not with her eyes, but with her ears and intuition. There was something genuine about him, something that made her believe he was not like the others. Unlike the villagers who avoided her, Luke seemed genuinely curious about her, not afraid or uncomfortable. Over the next few days, Luke stayed near the village, helping where he could. He fixed fences, tended to horses, and assisted the villagers with chores. Slowly, his presence became familiar. Naomi watched from a distance, listening to his interactions. He treated everyone with kindness, never showing impatience or judgment. And although he did not always speak to her directly, she could sense that he noticed her, that he recognized her presence without needing her to explain herself. One afternoon, Luke wandered to the edge of the village, near the same spot where Naomi often sat. She was practicing her tracking skills, following the subtle sounds of the desert creatures around her. Luke paused and observed quietly. "What are you doing?" he asked. Naomi smiled softly. "I'm listening," she said. "I can hear the rabbits moving, the birds in the trees, even the wind shifting over the sand. I'm learning to understand the world by sound." Luke knelt down, keeping his voice gentle. "That's amazing," he said. "I've never met anyone who can do that. I rely too much on my eyes. I think I could learn a lot from you." For the first time, Naomi felt a spark of excitement. Here was someone who not only accepted her but wanted to learn from her. The thought was thrilling, almost dizzying. She had spent her whole life feeling separate, alone, and now someone was truly noticing her in a meaningful way. As they spent more time together, Luke began sharing small stories from his life. He spoke of his travels, the places he had seen, and the lessons he had learned. He told Naomi about his sister, who had been very close to him before she passed away. His voice carried sadness, but also warmth. Naomi listened intently, sensing his emotions and offering quiet words of comfort when needed. One day, while they were walking near a stream just outside the village, Naomi lost her balance on a slippery rock. She slipped, and before she could catch herself, Luke instinctively reached out and grabbed her arm, steadying her. The surprise of the moment made Naomi's heart race, but it also sparked a strange, unspoken connection between them. She realized that this was the first time someone had truly reached out to her, not just to guide her, but to protect her in an honest, instinctive way. "Thank you," she whispered, still catching her breath. Luke smiled warmly. "You're welcome, you're careful, but these rocks can be tricky." He paused, then added softly, "I'm glad I was here to help." From that day forward, their bond grew stronger. Luke did not treat Naomi like someone weak or fragile. Instead, he encouraged her to explore and trust her own abilities. He guided her gently, asking her to describe what she felt, what she heard, and what she imagined. Through their conversations, Naomi began to see herself differently. She realized that her blindness was not a limitation. It was simply another way of experiencing the world. The villagers began to notice the changes as well. Naomi was smiling more, speaking more confidently, and even joining small activities with Luke's encouragement. Slowly, their curiosity about her grew, and some of the children began to approach her cautiously, inspired by the bond she had formed with the cowboy. It was a small step, but it was the beginning of a transformation in how the village viewed Naomi. Luke's accidental arrival had changed everything. He had not intended to be a hero or a teacher, but his presence allowed Naomi to shine in ways that had never been recognized before. He treated her as an equal, respected her intelligence, and valued her unique perspective. In return, Naomi began to trust, to laugh, and to hope for the future. Evenings in the village became special moments. Naomi would sit with Luke under the stars, listening to the night sounds of the desert while he shared stories of his travels. She learned that the world was much larger than her small village, and that life could be full of friendship, trust, and adventure, even for someone who could not see. By the end of the week, Naomi no longer felt the same heavy weight of loneliness. She had found someone who truly understood her, someone who saw beyond her blindness. For the first time in her life, she believed that the world could be a place where she belonged, not just at the edge, but at the center of meaningful connections. And while she did not yet know what the future held, Nayeli felt a quiet excitement deep inside her. She had discovered the first hint of freedom, trust, and friendship, a promise that life had more to offer than isolation and distance. Luke's accidental appearance in her life had started something new, something she had longed for but never imagined could happen. The sun set behind the distant hills, casting golden shadows across the village. Nayeli sat quietly, listening to the wind and the soft murmur of the desert. She smiled to herself, feeling a warmth she had not known before. The world had begun to open to her, and for the first time she was ready to step into it, not alone, but with someone who truly cared. The days grew warmer as the sun climbed higher in the desert sky. Nayeli woke early, as always, listening to the wind ripple through the tall grasses and the distant calls of the animals in the hills. Since Luke had arrived in the village, her life had started to feel different. The loneliness that had weighed on her for so many years was slowly giving way to curiosity and hope. She no longer spent her mornings just sitting and imagining. She had someone to share her thoughts and feelings with, even if Luke could not fully experience the world as she did. One morning, Nayeli wandered near the edge of the village, where the earth sloped gently toward a small stream. She loved this place. Here, she could hear the water trickling over the stones, the leaves rustling softly in the wind, and the distant sound of the village waking up. Luke had promised to meet her there, and she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Though she trusted him, something about the open space made her cautious. Luke arrived just as she was tracing the edge of the stream with her fingers, feeling the smooth stones beneath her hands. "Good morning, Nayeli," he said, his voice warm and friendly. "I thought we could try something new today." Nayeli smiled. "What do you mean?" Luke knelt beside her, careful not to startle her. "I want to explore the stream with you," he said. "I'll guide you, but I want you to use your other senses to understand it. Listen to the water, feel the stones, and let your imagination paint the picture." "I think you might be able to teach me something." Her heart lifted at his words. This was the first time someone had truly asked her to lead, to share her unique way of seeing the world. She nodded eagerly, letting him take her hand to guide her along the stream's edge. The water was cold, and its gentle flow created a rhythm she could follow with her fingers. Luke watched carefully as Nayeli's hands traced the stones, her expression calm and focused. "You're amazing at this," he said quietly. "I've never met anyone who can sense so much without seeing it." Nayeli laughed softly, a sound that was rare for her when others were around. "It's not that I'm amazing," she said. "I just notice things differently." They walked along the stream for a while, Nayeli leading the way with surprising confidence. Luke followed, holding her hand when needed, but always allowing her to explore on her own. As they moved, she described what she could feel: the smoothness of the river rocks, the tiny ripples in the water, and the vibrations of small fish darting beneath the surface. Luke listened intently, trying to imagine the world as she experienced it. After a while, they came to a small area where the water was deeper, and the stones beneath her feet were slippery. Nayeli paused. She could feel the uncertainty in the ground, the way the stones shifted slightly under her weight. "Be careful here," she warned. Luke smiled reassuringly. "I'll be right here with you." She took a deep breath and stepped forward, her confidence growing as she trusted Luke's presence. But suddenly one of the stones slipped beneath her foot. Her heart raced as she felt herself losing balance. Before she could react, Luke's hand shot out, catching her arm and steadying her. The sudden contact startled her, but also filled her with a sense of safety she had never felt before. "Are you okay?" Luke asked, his voice full of concern. I'm fine," Nayeli said, still catching her breath. She realized in that moment that this was more than an accident. It was a connection, a moment where someone had truly reached out for her, not because they had to, but because they cared. From that day on, something changed between them. Their friendship deepened, built on trust, patience, and shared experiences. Luke did not treat Nayeli differently because she was blind. He encouraged her to explore, to use her senses fully, and to speak about what she noticed. He asked questions that made her think, and he listened carefully to every answer. Nayeli, in turn, began to feel more confident in herself. She realized that her blindness was not a limitation, but a different way of experiencing life. They spent many days exploring the village and its surroundings. Naeli showed Luke how to recognize the calls of different birds, how to sense when a deer was nearby, and how the wind could guide one across the desert. Luke was fascinated. He had traveled far and seen many things, but Naeli's abilities amazed him in ways he had never expected. He learned to trust her instincts, to follow her guidance, and to see the world through her perspective. The villagers began to notice the change in Naeli. She walked taller, spoke with more confidence, and laughed more often. Children who had once avoided her now approached her cautiously, inspired by her courage and the bond she shared with Luke. They were curious about her abilities, and some even began asking her to teach them what she knew about listening, feeling, and understanding the world without sight. One afternoon, Naeli and Luke were sitting near the stream, resting in the shade of a large mesquite tree. Luke looked at her thoughtfully. "You know," he said, "I think you've changed the way I see the world. I've learned more from you in a few days than I have from anyone else in my life." Naeli smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "And you've changed me too," she said softly. "You've shown me that it's okay to trust someone, that the world isn't always as lonely as it seems." Luke nodded. "I didn't realize how much I needed this either. Meeting you, it's made me see that friendship isn't just about what we can do. It's about understanding, trusting, and being there for each other." As the days passed, their friendship became the heart of Naeli's world. She felt excitement for the first time in years, a spark that made each morning brighter. Luke's presence brought a sense of safety and joy she had never experienced. She laughed freely, shared stories from her imagination, and even began teaching him some of the skills she had learned from her father. One evening, the village gathered for a small festival to celebrate the harvest. Music played, drums echoed through the night, and families danced together. Naeli hesitated at first, unsure if she should join, but Luke gently took her hand. "Come on," he said. "You belong here too." With his support, Naeli stepped into the circle of dancers. She could feel the rhythm of the drums through the ground, the movement of the dancers around her, and the warmth of the community. She laughed, spun carefully, and let herself be part of something larger than herself. For the first time, she felt fully included, not as a blind girl, but as Naeli, a young woman with courage, curiosity, and a unique perspective on life. By the end of the evening, Naeli realized how much had changed. The villagers who had once kept their distance now looked at her with admiration and curiosity. The children who had once avoided her now wanted to learn from her. And Luke, the cowboy who had stumbled into her life by accident, had become her friend, guide, and ally. Naeli understood that life would still have challenges. There would be moments of doubt, days when she felt lonely, and times when the world seemed difficult to navigate. But with Luke's friendship and the growing acceptance of her village, she felt ready to face them. She had discovered a new way to live, a way that embraced her strengths, honored her differences, and celebrated the connections she could form with others. As the stars appeared in the sky that night, Naeli sat quietly, listening to the desert around her. She could hear Luke's voice telling a story in the distance, the soft murmur of the village settling in for the night, and the gentle whisper of the wind through the trees. Her heart was full of hope and gratitude. For the first time, she knew that life could be rich, meaningful, and full of unexpected joys. The accidental moment at the stream had sparked something profound, a bond that neither of them had planned, but both of them would treasure forever. Naeli had begun to understand that connection, trust, and friendship could come from the most unexpected places. And as she closed her eyes to listen to the night, she knew that her journey was only just beginning. The world had started to open to her, and for the first time, she was eager to step into it, hand in hand with someone who truly understood her. The days after the stream incident carried a quiet change in the village. Naeli felt a new strength within herself. Luke's presence had given her courage, but it was her own abilities and confidence that began to shine more clearly. She moved through the village with a new sense of purpose, listening, observing, and interacting in ways she never had before. The villagers began to notice. At first, their attention was cautious. Some of the adults whispered among themselves, unsure if Naeli's growing independence was a positive change or a cause for concern. "She's learning quickly," one woman said, "but can she truly manage on her own?" Another shook her head. "She's always been fragile. This boy, this cowboy, he's teaching her things we never thought possible." The children were even more curious. Some had begun to follow Naeli from a distance, watching how she moved and listened to the world. They were fascinated by her confidence and her skill in sensing things they had never considered. One afternoon, a small group of children approached her, hesitant but eager. "Can you teach us what you do?" one of the younger boys asked. "I want to hear what you hear and see what you feel," Nayeli smiled. It was the first time someone had asked her to share her abilities rather than fear them. She nodded. "Yes," she said, "but you must listen carefully and respect the world around you. It has many stories to tell if you are patient." That afternoon, Nayeli led the children to a small patch of desert near the village. She guided them to sit quietly, close their eyes, and focus on sounds they might otherwise ignore. The whisper of the wind, the scurry of a lizard across the sand, the distant call of a bird. The children were amazed. Some laughed at first, unsure what they were supposed to do, but soon they began to notice the richness of the world around them. Nayeli's confidence grew as she guided them, and Luke watched from a distance, proud of how naturally she had taken charge. Luke continued to play a quiet, supportive role. He did not overshadow Nayeli or take control. Instead, he encouraged her to lead, to share her knowledge, and to trust herself. Sometimes, he would demonstrate what he saw in his own way, using his eyes to point out things that Nayeli could then describe through her senses. Together, they formed a small team, learning from each other and building a bridge between their two ways of experiencing the world. As the village saw Nayeli teaching others, their perception of her began to shift. Adults who had once kept their distance now observed with growing respect. They realized that her blindness did not make her weak. In fact, her unique abilities gave her insights that others lacked. She could sense danger in ways they could not, identify subtle changes in the environment, and guide others safely across the land. The villagers began to ask her for advice on tracking animals, finding water, and understanding the desert's hidden signs. Even the children who had once avoided her started to include her in games. Nayeli adapted the activities so everyone could participate, teaching them how to move safely, listen carefully, and trust their instincts. The laughter that had once seemed impossible for her to share with others now filled the village streets. Nayeli's world was expanding, and with it the world of those around her. One day, as she and Luke walked near the edge of the desert, Nayeli paused. "Do you think the villagers will ever fully accept me?" she asked softly. Luke smiled. "They already are," he said. "It takes time for people to see what's right in front of them, but you've shown them your strength. They can't ignore it anymore." Nayeli considered his words. He was right. She had spent so long waiting for someone to understand her, to see her abilities instead of her blindness, that she had doubted whether it could ever happen. But now, standing at the edge of the desert, listening to the sounds of the world around her, she felt a quiet certainty. She was no longer just a blind girl. She was a teacher, a leader, and a friend. As the weeks passed, Nayeli's role in the village grew. She began to help the chief with small responsibilities, offering insights into the environment, warning of approaching storms, and even assisting with planning hunts. Her father watched with quiet pride, knowing that his daughter had grown far beyond what anyone in the village had imagined. One afternoon, Nayeli and Luke were sitting beneath a large mesquite tree, sharing stories and listening to the desert's sounds. Luke looked at her thoughtfully. "You've changed this village," he said. "You've shown them that strength comes in many forms, and that understanding is more important than what we can see with our eyes." Nayeli smiled, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "It wasn't just me," she said. "It was you too. You believed in me when no one else did. You listened and encouraged me. That made all the difference." Luke shook his head gently. "You had it in you all along. I just helped you notice it." Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of laughter from the village. Nayeli could hear the children running and playing, their voices full of joy. She realized that this was a world she had never thought possible, a world where she belonged, where she could teach, laugh, and be understood. Over time, Nayeli began to take on more leadership roles within the village. She organized small learning sessions for children, guiding them in listening to the land and understanding its rhythms. She helped adults identify subtle signs of weather changes or animal movements. Slowly but surely, her presence became indispensable. People began to seek her advice not out of obligation, but out of respect. One day, the chief gathered the villagers for a meeting. He spoke of the changes he had seen in Nayeli, the confidence, the knowledge, and the way she had brought the community together. "My daughter has taught us all a lesson," he said. Strength is not only in sight or physical ability, it is in the heart, the mind, and the courage to trust oneself. Nayeli has shown us what it means to truly understand the world and each other. The villagers nodded, some with tears in their eyes. Nayeli stood quietly, listening to their words. She felt a deep sense of belonging she had never known before. The girl who had once been isolated, who had spent her days longing for companionship, was now at the center of a community that respected and valued her. Even with all these changes, Nayeli remained humble. She knew that her journey was ongoing. There would always be challenges and moments of doubt, but with Luke by her side and the support of her village, she felt ready to face whatever came next. She had discovered that true strength came not from avoiding difficulty, but from embracing it with courage, trust, and the willingness to learn and teach. One evening, as the sun set over the desert, Nayeli and Luke walked to the top of a small hill overlooking the village. The sky was painted in soft hues of orange and pink, and the village below was alive with light and sound. Nayeli reached out her hand, feeling the warmth of the stones beneath her fingers. She could hear the laughter of children, the chatter of adults, and the rustle of the wind through the trees. "This is beautiful," she said softly. "I can feel it all, the life, the energy, the connection." Luke nodded. "It is beautiful," he said. "And it's even more special because you helped create it. Look how far you've come." Nayeli smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride and gratitude. She had grown from a lonely, isolated girl into a confident, respected young woman. The village had learned to see her not as someone limited by her blindness, but as a person with unique abilities and insights. And she had learned that trust, kindness, and friendship could open doors she had never thought possible. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Nayeli and Luke sat together, listening to the desert around them. The wind whispered through the grasses, carrying the soft sounds of life. Nayeli felt a quiet certainty in her heart. She was ready for the next chapter of her journey, confident in herself and in the connections she had forged. The village had changed, and so had Nayeli. What had once been a place of isolation and doubt had become a community of understanding, respect, and friendship. And at the center of it all was a young girl who had learned to trust her own abilities, and a cowboy who had shown her the power of belief, patience, and support. For Nayeli, the world was no longer a place to be feared. It was a place to explore, teach, and share. And as she closed her eyes to feel the wind on her face, she knew that she was ready to meet whatever challenges and joys lay ahead. The sun rose slowly over the desert, casting a warm, golden light across the village. The soft breeze carried the scent of sage and the distant sound of the river. Nayeli woke early, as she always did, feeling a sense of excitement that was new and unfamiliar. Today was different. Today, she would experience the full recognition of the journey she had begun long ago, the journey from isolation to connection, from doubt to confidence. Over the past weeks, the village had changed along with her. Nayeli's presence had become central to the community. Children no longer avoided her. Instead, they sought her guidance, eager to learn from the girl who had taught them to listen to the world in a way they never had before. Adults who had once hesitated to approach her now asked for her advice on tracking, predicting the weather, and understanding the subtle movements of animals. Nayeli had become a teacher, a leader, and a friend, all without losing her humility or gentleness. Luke was already outside, helping the villagers prepare for a small celebration in her honor. It was not a grand ceremony, but a simple gathering to acknowledge her growth and her contributions. The villagers had wanted to show their appreciation, not through words alone, but through action, creating an event that would allow Nayeli to feel the connection and respect she had earned. As Nayeli approached the gathering area, she felt a mix of emotions. Pride, joy, and a quiet nervousness filled her heart. She could hear the soft hum of activity, laughter, chatter, and the sound of children's feet running across the dirt. She reached out with her hands, sensing the warmth of the sun on the ground and the subtle vibrations of people moving around her. This was her world now, fully alive and welcoming. The chief stood nearby, watching his daughter with pride. He had seen her grow from a quiet, isolated girl into a confident young woman. Her journey had not been easy. She had faced loneliness, doubt, and the challenges of navigating a world that often underestimated her. But she had also discovered strength, resilience, and the power of connection. "Today," the chief began, his voice carrying across the gathering, "we honor Nayeli." She has shown us all that strength is not measured by what we can see, but by what we can understand, by how we treat others, and by the courage to trust ourselves. Nayeli has taught us to listen, to learn, and to embrace the gifts that each of us carries. The villagers nodded, some with tears in their eyes. Nayeli listened quietly, feeling the weight of their words. It was a moment of recognition she had longed for, yet never imagined would come. She felt the love, respect, and admiration of her community, and for the first time she understood fully that she belonged. Luke stepped forward, standing beside her. "I have had the privilege of knowing Nayeli," he said, his voice warm and steady. "She has changed the way I see the world. Her strength, patience, and understanding have taught me lessons I will carry for the rest of my life. Today, we celebrate not just her abilities, but her courage and her heart." Nayeli's chest swelled with emotion. She could hear the gratitude in Luke's words, the sincerity in the voices of her villagers. She had come so far, from a life of isolation and doubt to a place where she was valued, respected, and loved. And it was not because someone had done it for her, but because she had trusted herself and allowed others to see her true worth. The children approached her, holding small gifts they had made, woven bracelets, painted stones, and tiny carved figures. Each offering was a token of their admiration and gratitude. Nayeli reached out, feeling the shapes and textures with her hands, smiling softly. She could sense the care and thought behind each gift, the same care she had once wished to receive from the world. One of the younger children, a boy named Tayan, spoke up. "Nayeli, will you teach me how to listen to the wind like you do?" he asked. "I want to understand the world the way you do." Nayeli's heart warmed. "Yes," she said gently, "I will teach you. But remember, it takes patience and respect. The world speaks to all of us if we take the time to listen." The villagers watched as Nayeli guided the children, her hands moving confidently as she explained how to sense changes in the wind, the sound of the earth beneath their feet, and the rhythms of life around them. Luke observed quietly, proud of the young woman she had become. He had been the first to see her potential, but it was Nayeli herself who had grown into the role of teacher and leader. As the afternoon sun began to sink toward the horizon, the village gathered for a small feast. The air was filled with the aroma of roasted vegetables, fresh bread, and sweet herbs. Nayeli sat with her father and Luke, feeling the warmth of the community around her. She listened to the laughter of children, the hum of conversation, and the soft music of drums and flutes. It was a symphony of life, and she was fully part of it. After the meal, the villagers formed a circle in the center of the gathering. Nayeli was invited to stand in the middle. She could hear the footsteps of everyone moving into place, the anticipation in their voices. The chief stepped forward, his hand gently resting on her shoulder. "Nayeli," he said, "you have shown us all what it means to be strong, brave, and wise. You have taught us lessons we will never forget. Today, we honor you not as the blind daughter of the chief, but as a remarkable young woman, a guide, and a friend to us all." The villagers erupted in applause, their voices echoing across the desert. Nayeli stood quietly, feeling tears welling in her eyes. She had dreamed of belonging, of being understood, and now she was living that dream. Her journey from isolation to recognition had been long and challenging, but every step had been worth it. Luke stepped beside her once more. "I am proud of you, Nayeli," he said softly. "You have shown everyone that true strength comes from within, and that the world is richer when we trust ourselves and each other." Nayeli smiled, feeling the warmth of his hand brush against hers. "Thank you," she said, "for helping me see what I already had inside." As night fell, the villagers lit small fires, and the desert was illuminated by their soft glow. Nayeli listened to the music of the night, the whisper of the wind, the crackle of the fires, and the laughter and conversation of her community. She could feel the connection, the acceptance, and the love that surrounded her. For the first time in her life, Nayeli felt fully at peace. She had faced the loneliness and fear that had once held her back, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more confident. The world that had once seemed distant and unwelcoming was now a place of friendship, respect, and possibility. Luke and Nayeli walked together to the top of a small hill overlooking the village. From this height, she could sense the entire community, the movement of people, the rhythm of life, and the harmony they had created together. Nayeli felt a deep sense of pride, not in herself alone, but in the community that had grown alongside her, learning from her and with her. "This is amazing," she said softly, closing her eyes to feel the desert night around her. I never thought the world could feel so alive. Luke smiled. It's even more amazing because you helped create it. You've touched the hearts of everyone here, Naeli, and you've shown me and them that courage, trust, and kindness can change everything. Naeli opened her eyes, feeling the cool breeze on her face. She could hear the village settling for the night, the soft whispers of conversation, and the distant call of an owl. She realized that she was no longer the isolated girl who had once longed for companionship. She was a part of something bigger, something full of life, connection, and love. The celebration continued under the stars. Music, laughter, and storytelling filled the air. Naeli felt the rhythm of the drums in her chest, the warmth of the fire on her skin, and the presence of every person who had come to honor her. She knew that life would still bring challenges, but she also knew that she had the strength, courage, and support to face them. As the night drew to a close, Naeli stood quietly, listening to the sounds around her. The wind, the earth, and the voices of her village spoke to her in a way they never had before. She felt a deep sense of belonging, of understanding, and of peace. Her journey from loneliness to recognition was complete, but she also knew that life would continue to bring new lessons, adventures, and joys. Luke stood beside her, a quiet presence, knowing that their bond had grown into something rare and special. Naeli smiled, feeling gratitude for the cowboy who had accidentally stumbled into her life, and for the villagers who had finally seen her for who she truly was. Together, they watched the stars appear, marking the beginning of a new chapter in Naeli's life, a life filled with friendship, respect, and endless possibility. For Naeli, the world was no longer a place of fear or isolation. It was a place to explore, teach, and share. And as she felt the desert wind on her face, she knew that she was ready for every adventure that lay ahead, confident in herself and in the connections she had built.